As the moon hung high in the star-studded sky, casting a silvery glow over the Lien clan's estate, Lien Mu sat in the quiet of the night with his wife, Lianu. The soft flicker of candles illuminated their modest living room, creating dancing shadows on the walls, reminiscent of the turbulent thoughts swirling in their minds. The faint scent of blooming night jasmine wafted through the open window, mingling with the warmth of the hearth, grounding them in the stillness of the evening. Liana, with her graceful presence and warm demeanor, observed her husband, her heart heavy with a tension that permeated the air. She could see the subtle lines of worry etched upon his forehead, the way his fingers drummed anxiously against the table. "What troubles you so, my love?" she asked gently, her voice a soothing balm against the unease that had settled in. Taking a deep breath, Lien Mu leaned forward, his brow furrowed with concern. "There is something strange about our situation," he began, his voice steady yet tinged with urgency. "No upper-level clan has shown interest in this southern region until now, but the sudden rise of the Husin clan feels orchestrated. I fear they are being backed by an unseen power, one that seeks to disrupt the delicate balance of our world." His words hung in the air like a thundercloud, and Liana nodded, her expression shifting from concern to apprehension. "You believe they have been given something to bolster their strength?" she asked, her eyes narrowing as she considered the implications. "Yes," Lien Mu replied, his voice low and serious. "I suspect they've received precious herbs, something rare and potent, that has propelled Husin, who to the rank of Night King in an alarmingly short time. It's as if they intend for him to reign over the smaller clans, forcing them into servitude, like slaves bound by invisible chains." The revelation sent a shiver down Liana's spine, her heart racing at the thought of their clan falling prey to such tyranny. But why? What purpose could it serve for these upper clans to destabilize our region? Her voice quivered slightly, reflecting the weight of the implications. Lien Mu shook his head, his expression darkening as he gazed into the flickering flames of the hearth. "I don't know, but it feels as though they are playing a game with lives at stake, manipulating the pawns on a grand chessboard. We must be cautious, for the Husin clan will likely turn their ambitions toward us next. If they succeed in controlling the smaller clans, they will gain a powerful foothold in the south." He paused, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. Liana felt the tension in the room tighten like a bowstring, each heartbeat echoing the unspoken fears they both shared. "Tonight," Lien Mu continued, "I overheard whispers of a gathering, an assembly of the upper clans. They are plotting something, and we cannot allow ourselves to be caught off guard. Now try to read out loud."
The night was deathly still. Shadows clung to the walls of the Lien clan's main hall, where a single flickering flame in the lantern seemed to battle against the encroaching darkness. Lien Mu, the clan patriarch, sat rigid in his seat, his face etched with a mix of frustration and fear. Opposite him sat his wife, Liana, her expression mirroring his, though her eyes carried a deeper worry. The air was thick with unspoken anxieties. Lien Mu broke the tense silence, his voice low but brimming with anger. "The Husin clan, they've attacked our people again, and for what? They've gone mad with power, but no one can act this recklessly without support. They have backing, Liana, I'm sure of it." Liana swallowed hard, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Who would dare support them? Who in their right mind would care enough about this forsaken region?" Lien Mu's jaw tightened, his knuckles turning white as he clenched the armrests of his chair. "That's the question, isn't it? No upper clan would waste their time here. They think of us as ants. But someone is moving behind the scenes, someone powerful enough to make Huzan who break through to the Night King tier in a matter of months. And now they're using their newfound power to subjugate the smaller clans, to turn us into slaves for their own ambitions. The lantern flickered, casting long, distorted shadows over his face. Lianor's heart pounded in her chest, fear gnawing at her insides. But, what kind of force could do this so quickly? What kind of madness drives them? Lian Mu stood abruptly, his eyes dark and fierce. Whoever it is, they are beyond what we can fight. Huzan, whose sudden rise to Night King, isn't normal. No ordinary resources could achieve that in such a short time. Someone or something has given him power, power we can't begin to comprehend. And they're using the Huzan clan as a puppet to tear apart the southern region. He paced the room, every step heavy with the weight of his thoughts. But there's something far more terrifying than Huzan, whose arrogance. There's a force in the heart of the great southern magical forest that even the super clans fear. No one has ever reached its core, not even the greatest warriors. Those who have ventured too deep have never returned. I've heard stories of men at the Emperor King tier, even higher, vanishing without a trace. That force, it's something ancient, something that watches but never reveals itself. And it's stronger than we can imagine. His voice dropped, filled with a cold dread that sent chills through the room. Super clans are like ants before it. Lianor shuddered, her voice barely more than a whisper. Then why? Why would Huzan who act so arrogantly? Why stir up chaos when there's something so terrifying lurking so close? Lian Mu's eyes darkened further. Because they're blind. Greedy. They've tasted power and think they're invincible. But if they draw too much attention, that mysterious force may choose to awaken. And if it does, no one, not even the super clans, will survive its wrath. The room fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the faint crackling of the lantern's flame. Lianor wrapped her arms around herself, her fear tangible. What are we to do, Mu? If the Huzan clan continues like this, we'll be caught in the middle. And if that force awakens, her voice trailed off, and tears welled in her eyes as she thought of their daughter, Lian Qiwer. The 6-year-old was a beacon of hope, of light, but now, even that seemed fragile against the dark tide rising around them. Unbeknownst to them, Lian Qiwer stood just beyond the door, hidden in the shadows. Her small hands clutched the doorframe, her heart racing as she listened to every word. Her father's deep voice, filled with fear and determination, sent shivers down her spine. Her mother's trembling voice made her want to run into the room and wrap her arms around them both. But she stayed silent, her wide eyes reflecting the fear in the room. Lian Mu finally stopped pacing and looked toward the door, his gaze softening as if he could sense his daughter's presence. I don't know what to do, Lianor. But I know one thing, I'll protect our family, no matter what it costs. If it comes to it, I'll face Huzan who myself. I'll die before I let them enslave our clan. His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotion. Lianor's tears fell silently as she looked at her husband, knowing the weight he carried but feeling utterly helpless to ease it. Mu, what about Qiwer? She's just a child. What kind of world will she grow up in if this continues? A sudden surge of determination filled Lian Mu's heart. I'll make sure she grows up in a world where she's free. I'll make her strong. I'll give her everything she needs to face whatever comes. I'll protect her, no matter what. Outside the door, Lian Qiwer wiped away a tear, her tiny fists clenched in fierce resolve. I'll get strong too, father. I'll become strong enough to protect you. I'll protect us all. Inside, the parents sat in silence, but Lian Mu's thoughts raced. His mind returned to the great southern magical forest, the unknown power that lurked within it, and the chaos brewing at their doorstep. He knew that the Huzan clan was a pawn in a much larger game, a game played by forces far beyond their understanding. The night grew colder, and as the last flicker of the lantern struggled to hold back the darkness, Lian Mu felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on his chest. He would do anything, everything, to protect his family, but deep down, he knew they were standing on the edge of a precipice. One wrong move, and the abyss would swallow them whole.
She could feel the storm brewing within him. His resolve was unshakable, his love for their daughter immeasurable. But she also knew the path ahead would be treacherous, and the cost of their safety might demand more than either of them could foresee. The room fell silent again, the quiet night outside doing little to ease their burden. But amidst the tension and worry, there was a flicker of hope, small but persistent, like the flame in the lantern that continued to burn against the darkness. Lian Mu would stop at nothing to save their daughter, and Lianer would stand by his side, no matter what price they had to pay. Lian Mu's weathered hands trembled slightly as he reached into his robe, pulling out a small, intricately carved wooden box. Its delicate engravings shimmered under the soft glow of the lantern light, as though it held not just a pill, but a promise. He hesitated, his eyes locking onto Lianer, who stood before him, her expression already clouded with concern. Gently, he opened the box just enough for her to see the pill nestled inside. The pill glowed faintly, casting a soft, ethereal light that hinted at its extraordinary power. The scent of rare herbs filled the air, almost like a whisper of hope amidst their looming fears. His voice, though calm, was laced with a sorrowful intensity. "This," he said, pressing the box into her hands, "is for Kiur. It's a Tier 3 medicinal pill, one of the rarest. If she's ever in danger, if her life hangs by a thread, this will bring her back." Lianer's breath hitched. Her heart raced as she gazed down at the pill, her mind spinning with the weight of what it represented. "Mu," she whispered, her voice shaky, "how much did this cost us?" He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle but his eyes filled with an aching sorrow. "It doesn't matter," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I would give everything for her. But, no one can know. Not even the clan. We paid a price, but if anyone finds out, especially the elders, it could put us all in even greater danger." Tears welled in Lianer's eyes as she clutched the box close to her chest, the gravity of the moment sinking in. She could feel her husband's unspoken fears, the burden he bore alone, and the quiet desperation that hung between them like a veil. Lian Mu turned away, his jaw clenched as he gazed out of the window into the stillness of the night. His heart ached with more than just worry for the clan, it was the thought of his daughter, his precious Kiur, whose laughter lit up his world like the stars themselves. The thought of losing her, of failing her, was unbearable. "I have to become stronger," he muttered, more to himself than to her. His voice wavered, the frustration and helplessness creeping into his tone. "But we're running out of time. We don't have the resources. No alchemist to speed up our cultivation, no allies strong enough to protect us. If Huzan continues to rise, he'll crush us. He'll crush her." His voice broke slightly, and Lianer felt her own heart shatter at the sight of him, her strong, proud husband, so overwhelmed by the weight of the world. The great patriarch who led their clan now stood on the brink, caught between the duty to his people and the love for his daughter. He turned back to her, his eyes filled with unshed tears. "I need to protect her, Lianer. No matter what it costs, I'll protect our daughter. But I'm not strong enough yet. We need allies. Someone powerful, someone who can stand beside us. If not, we'll be swallowed whole." The room was thick with emotion, the silence deafening in the wake of his confession. Lianer stood there, her hands still wrapped around the box, tears streaming down her face as she understood the depth of his love, his fear, and his unyielding determination. Her voice was soft but resolute as she stepped closer to him, placing a hand on his chest. "We'll find a way, Mu. We'll protect her together." As they stood in the quiet room, the night seemed colder, darker. But in that moment, surrounded by uncertainty and fear, they found solace in each other. And though the path ahead was fraught with danger, there was a flicker of hope, small, fragile, but enough to carry them forward.
In the depths of Chiyua's slumber, a vivid and haunting dream enveloped her. She found herself standing in a vast, desolate landscape, bathed in a cold, eerie light that seemed to drain the warmth from her bones. The air crackled with tension, filled with the echoes of something ancient and terrible. The ground beneath her trembled, as if the earth itself feared the battle unfolding before her eyes. In the distance, for colossal figures loomed, their mere presence bending the sky and land around them. A monstrous dragon, its body covered in golden scales that glimmered like molten metal, roared with a deafening sound that shook the very core of the world. Its eyes, cold and ruthless, glowed with an otherworldly light, filled with an ancient malice that sent chills down her spine. It towered over everything, a creature of unimaginable power. Opposite the dragon, a massive bird of fire rose, its wings stretching endlessly across the sky, casting a blinding glow that turned night into day. Flames licked at the edges of its fiery feathers, so hot that the very air around it warped and distorted. The firebird's shriek pierced the heavens, a sound so fierce that it seemed to tear the sky apart, filling the air with a scorching heat that made the ground blizzle and crack. The Lord of Darkness moved swiftly, his shadowy form darting toward the being of light. They collided in an eruption of energy, light against darkness dins. The air grew colder with each blow, and the world around them dimmed as darkness crept in, devouring everything in its path. Suddenly, there was a horrific crash, followed by another thunderous boom, as the dragon and the firebird collided once more. This time, their bodies trembled, both titans teetering on the edge of collapse. The dragon's once radiant scales now dulled, cracked, and broken. The firebird's flames flickered, its once magnificent wings charred and weakened. Both titans staggered, their immense power drained, before they were swallowed by a swirling void that opened beneath them. The ground cracked and split as the titans fell, their roars fading into nothingness as the void consumed them whole. The remaining two titans, the Lord of Darkness and the Being of Light, fought with dwindling strength. Their movements were slower now, their blows less forceful, yet the energy between them was still terrifying. With one final boom, they both staggered back, gravely injured, barely holding onto their forms. Blood, black as night from the Lord of Darkness and gleaming silver from the Being of Light, dripped onto the battlefield, hissing as it met the scorched earth. And then, in the distance, Chiyua saw something that made her heart stop: a forest. It was vast, shrouded in mist and shadow, its towering trees twisted like claws reaching into the sky. A cold wind blew through its branches, carrying with it the faint whispers of something ancient, something powerful.
The forest pulsed with a dark, almost forbidden energy, as if it was alive and waiting. The air around it was thick with an unspoken danger, but at the same time, it seemed to beckon to her, drawing her in with a quiet, mysterious call. As the dream faded, Chiyua felt the pull of the forest grow stronger, the whisper turning into a soft chant that echoed in her mind. The last thing she saw before waking was the forest, dark, looming, and filled with secrets. And deep within it, something called out to her. Something that felt far more real than a mere dream. When Chiyua awoke, her heart was racing, her tiny hands gripping the sheets tightly. She could still feel the cold air from the dream, the presence of those titans, and the silent pull of that dark forest. It wasn't just a dream, it was a sign. The next day, the atmosphere within the Lien clan was thick with tension and anticipation. In the grand main hall, the patriarch, Lien Mu, summoned all the elders and clan members to gather for an urgent meeting. The once vibrant hall, adorned with intricate tapestries and flickering lanterns, now felt solemn, every corner echoing with unspoken worry. As the clan members filed in, their expressions mirrored the uncertainty that gripped their hearts. Elder Lien Jin, the first elder, stood at the front, his brow furrowed with concern. The whispers of anxious clanmates filled the room, each questioning the sudden urgency of the patriarch's call. Why has the patriarch summoned us at such short notice? Elder Jin murmured to second elder Lien Fong, his voice barely above a whisper. What could be so important that it warrants an immediate clan ceremony? Lien Fong shook his head, his own worry evident in his furrowed brow. I do not know. But with the recent attacks from the Huzuan clan,
we can only assume the worst. Perhaps the patriarch has uncovered new information that demands our immediate attention. As the final clan members settled in, the room fell silent, a heavy weight of expectation hanging in the air. Lien Mu stepped forward, his face a mask of determination and concern. Thank you all for gathering here today, he began, his voice steady yet resonating with urgency. We are faced with a grave situation, one that threatens the very foundation of our clan and our safety within this region. A palpable tension enveloped the room, the eyes of the elders and clan members fixed on Lien Mu. The Huzuan clan has grown bolder in their attacks, but it is not just their arrogance that concerns me. I believe they have formed an alliance with a more powerful entity, one that we cannot afford to ignore. This is why I have called for this ceremony. Murmurs of disbelief and fear spread through the hall. Clan members exchanged worried glances, the implications of his words settling heavily upon them. Elder Zhen stepped forward, his voice quavering with concern. What do you propose we do, Patriarch? We are but a small clan, and any alliance with a more powerful faction could lead to our downfall. Lien Mu nodded, understanding the weight of their predicament. Today, we will perform a ritual to seek guidance and strength from our ancestors. We must unite and strengthen our resolve. We need to discover the truth behind the Huzuan clan's newfound power and seek out potential allies. We cannot stand alone against this threat. With resolve and purpose, Lien Mu gestured to the center of the hall where an ornate altar stood. Intricate carvings adorned its surface, depicting the legendary heroes of the past, warriors who once fought for their clan's honor and survival.
Let us begin the ceremony, he declared, raising his voice above the murmurs of apprehension. May our ancestors guide us and grant us the strength to face the challenges ahead. As the clan members gathered around the altar, their hearts united in purpose, Lien Mu felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. They would stand together against the shadows threatening to engulf them. They would fight for their clan and their future, no matter the cost.
In the Huzuan clan, the atmosphere was thick with ambition and malice. Huzuan, who sat confidently in the ancestral hall, surrounded by the elders who had rallied to support his ruthless ambitions. The hall was adorned with ancient relics, remnants of a time when the clan had been revered and feared. Today, it was a meeting place for plotting and strategizing.
The first elder, Huzuan Miao, leaned forward, his eyes glinting with a mix of eagerness and caution. Patriarch, what is our next target? We've already destroyed many families, and several others are currently in our grasp. What shall we do next? Huzuan Hu smiled, a chilling expression that sent shivers down the spines of those present. We must swallow the smaller families first. It is essential to consolidate our power before we set our sights on larger fish. Each conquest will strengthen our grip on this region. The first elder nodded, but a hint of concern crossed his face. But, Patriarch, there are alchemists and formation masters in this region. If we act recklessly, we could provoke retaliation. We need to tread carefully. Huzuan Hu waved a dismissive hand. They don't have any ties to those little ants, he sneered, referring to the smaller families they intended to eliminate. Their feeble connections won't protect them. They're nothing but pawns in this game. On Huzuan Hu's right side, his son, an arrogant 11-year-old named Huzuan Jian, leaned back with an air of superiority. He mirrored his father's disdain. Father, when we deal with the Lien clan, we should crush them swiftly and completely. They've lingered long enough. Let them see the might of the Huzuan clan.
Huzuan, whose eyes narrowed at the mention of the Lien clan. They had been a thorn in his side for far too long. Yes, my son, but patience is key. We cannot allow our eagerness to cloud our judgment. After all, there is an auction happening in a few days. Huzuan who continued, his voice smooth like silk. We will attend this auction and procure something of value. Anything you desire will be yours, Jian. Power is not just about destruction. It's also about the resources we can gather. Each treasure we acquire will further our ambitions. Excitement flickered in Jian's eyes. I want the finest weapon, something that will make our enemies tremble in fear. Huzuan who chuckled a low, menacing sound. Then you shall have it. This auction will be the perfect opportunity for us to showcase our might while subtly asserting our dominance. We will make the other clans understand that the Huzuan clan is not to be trifled with. The second elder, his voice trembling slightly, broke the silence. Patriarch, while there's no clear backing, I've heard whispers among the clans. They suggest that some might see the Lien clan as a beacon of hope against our tyranny. It could be that they are rallying support without our knowledge. But Patriarch, the third elder interjected hesitantly, what if they're more resilient than we expect? They could have hidden resources, or worse, hidden powers. Then we shall draw them out, Huzuan who replied, his eyes glinting with a dangerous light. We'll let them think they're safe, that their strength lies in the shadows. And when the moment is right, we'll strike with a ferocity they've never known. They will regret ever daring to oppose us. The elders nodded in grim agreement, the fear lingering in the back of their minds but overshadowed by the thrill of impending conquest. Huzuan, who had ignited a fire within them, one that burned with the promise of bloodshed and power. Prepare the troops. I want our forces ready to move at a moment's notice. Huzuan who commanded, his voice resonating with authority. And keep a close watch on the Lien clan. We must strike before they can gather any semblance of strength. Hope. Huzuan who scoffed, a dark laugh escaping his lips. Let them rally. We will crush this so-called hope underfoot. But I need information. We must devise a detailed plan to attack them and eliminate any potential threats before they have a chance to mobilize. The first elder nodded vigorously. We'll send scouts to monitor their movements. If they're forging alliances, we must know who they're dealing with. And quickly.
Good. Huzuan who leaned back, steepling his fingers, the wheels of his mind turning with cruel delight, will sow discord among their ranks. If there's any support for the Lien clan, we'll find it and extinguish it. And if not, we'll dismantle them piece by piece until they are nothing more than a cautionary tale. But Patriarch, the third elder interjected hesitantly, what if they're more resilient than we expect? They could have hidden resources or worse, hidden powers. Then we shall draw them out, Huzuan who replied, his eyes glinting with a dangerous light. We'll let them think they're safe, that their strength lies in the shadows. And when the moment is right, we'll strike with a ferocity they've never known. The elders nodded in grim agreement, the fear lingering in the back of their minds but overshadowed by the thrill of impending conquest. Huzuan who had ignited a fire within them, one that burned with the promise of bloodshed and power. Prepare the troops. I want our forces ready to move at a moment's notice. Huzuan who commanded, his voice resonating with authority. And keep a close watch on the Lien clan. We must strike before they can gather any semblance of strength. As the elders dispersed to carry out their patriarch's orders, the air crackled with tension. Huzuan whose mind raced with visions of victory, the haunting sounds of their enemies' screams echoing in his ears as he envisioned the ultimate downfall of the Lien clan. The darkness surrounding them thickened, enveloping their ambitions as they prepared to unleash chaos upon the unsuspecting.